Well, thank you so much for having me here today. I'm Ryan Zalla, and I'd like to start, of course, by thanking the Falvey Memorial Library for not only all the valuable resources you're able to provide me during the project, but also for this tremendous honor. I also want to just take a moment to say that Dr. Michael Curran has been the single best mentor I've had here at Villanova. I mean, he arrived here from Ireland 2 years ago, and on the first night he was here, with all the pressure of having to teach new courses, didn't even have a bed at the time, I think, and having to learn how to start researching, he always had time for me. So whether or not it was sending me to conferences, giving me articles to read, or just having hours and hours long conversations on economic research, through my interaction with Dr. Curran, I realized that I discovered a passion for economics that I never realized I had. So it's entirely because of him that I wound up at UPenn, and he's utterly the most selfless person I know when it comes to his students. So thank you so much, Dr. Curran. All right, let's get started. So my question today deals with the macroeconomic impacts of policy uncertainty. So the University of Chicago economist Frank Knight in 1921 published a paper called Risk, Uncertainty, and Profit. And in this paper, he describes uncertainty as our reaction to the image of the future state of affairs. So essentially, we perceive the world before we react to it, and we react not to what we see, but always to what we can infer. So I constructed a method for measuring economic policy uncertainty in Ireland called, as Dr. Curran said, the Economic Policy Uncertainty Index. So what exactly is policy uncertainty, right? We'll start there. So policy uncertainty is how uncertain people are about what their government's going to do moving forward. So are they uncertain about taxes, spending, healthcare, regulations, immigration, a wall, NAFTA. You get where I'm going with this, right? So then why does policy uncertainty matter? Well, apart from the obvious reasons that you can probably infer. Policy uncertainty generates an economic slowdown. And the reason is that businesses tend to delay making expensive investment and hiring decisions when they're feeling uncertain. So say I own a pizza shop in Garrett Hill. Wait, that's probably too soon, sorry. Anyway, say I own a pizza shop and I'm doing really well, right? Business is booming and I'd like to open up a second store in the future. But for whatever reason, I'm feeling very uncertain. So I may wait. I may wait a year. I may wait 2 years. My dad actually owns a pizza shop, which is kind of funny. He's still waiting. So the problem that comes to mind is that when other businesses start to wait, the problem comes up when everyone waits. Because when everyone waits in the economy, you have a recession. So, naturally you might ask, who is sort of in a position, what kind of causes policy uncertainty? And the truth is, just about anyone in a position of economic authority is going to be capable of making a splash. So this could be like the president, this could be Janet Yellen at the Federal Reserve, business executives, Congress. In Ireland, our country of note, it could be the Taoiseach, which is like the Irish Prime Minister, or the Dáil, which is like the House of Representatives. Dr. Curran can say that way better than I can. But the big takeaway here is that policymakers need to understand the impact of their public actions and statements in generating uncertainty and adversely affecting the economy. So today we will examine those effects on the Irish Stock Exchange, employment, the interest rate, and industrial production. Now real quickly, Dr. Curran mentioned that there were 3 professors at various universities. This was sort of like the notable work that helped me out the most, Baker, Bloom, and Davis. They published an article in 2015 in one of the top journals in economics called Measuring Economic Policy Uncertainty. So they use a novel approach to estimate uncertainty, very similar to my own. They provide proof of concept, what I will show you today, as well as a framework for my empirical method. So I constructed the EPU index by essentially measuring how often newspapers in Ireland discuss uncertainty. So essentially I measured the frequency of keyword occurrences in newspaper articles, which I used to assess overall uncertainty in the economy. So these keywords, I'll show you soon, are words that, at least in your average consumer's mind, would be indicative of uncertainty. So if I have to say one newspaper from 1985 to 2016, that's like 3 million articles. So I'm not an English major, so that'd be a hell of a lot of bedside reading. So rather than torture myself or torture research assistants as Baker, Bloom, and Davis did, I chose to automate the process using a computational technique known as web scraping. So essentially, using code that was written in C# and executed in Microsoft SQL Server, I was able to automatically read through thousands of articles all in a matter of minutes. So thus I had the EPU index. So as I soon show you the index, it captures a wide variety of events, both domestic and international, many of which you'll probably remember hearing from in the news. The big result that we get is that the Irish Stock Exchange reacts negatively to an increase in uncertainty as measured by this index. And of course, other work has been done on indices for different countries, and I should say that Ireland was not included in the European index, but comparing my index to other indices, we found relatively robust correlations, which reinforces the accuracy of the index, hopefully. So, to construct the index, I used one newspaper, the Irish Times, which is the second highest circulated newspaper in Ireland, with a few 100,000 or so circulations per year. Now, why did I only use the number 2, and why did I only use one newspaper? Well, Ireland's kind of in the Stone Age. Sorry. They're not nearly as good as the United States when it comes to keeping online, updated, publicly accessible archives. In the US, you can get 20 different newspapers back to the 1800s. Ireland, this was the only one I could find, and fortunately, it was overall a pretty good measure. So even when I reached out to editors at other places, they were like, nope. So this is what we had to work with, but it works just fine for my purposes. So the keyword string I had to use, so this part's kind of important. I looked for 3 words to appear in the articles that I was pulling out to mean uncertainty. First of all, the article had to be about the economy, so it had to contain some word like economics, economic, economy. Similarly, uncertainty, so the word uncertain. The article had to be about uncertainty. Finally, this was kind of the cooler part, the policy term. So policy terms could be kind of general, such as regulation, government, central bank, deficit, taxes, and it could also be Irish-specific, like the Taoiseach, Irish Prime Minister, or the Dáil, which is like the House of Representatives. So once I was able to compile this data, it took about maybe 10 minutes or so, at least it did on my computer, I was able to standardize it into a neat index. So the index, for the most part, it's easier to read with a standardization applied, and if I want to add more newspapers in the future, as Ireland starts to publish more, it'll be much more easier to do so. And then the fun part was going back and examining all these spikes on the index were of uncertainty to determine which events were correlating with those spikes. So here it is. Okay, this is a little tough to see from probably where you guys are back there, so I'll try to help out a little bit. Essentially, we have from 1985 to 2016 an uncertainty index, where these spikes tend to correlate with events causing uncertainty. So one big notable one is right here, Brexit. One of the tallest points on the map. And as you can see, it's actually got a little bit of persistence at the top, which is kind of unusual. We also have things like the Irish election, which in case you guys don't know, last year, during the first few months of the spring, Ireland didn't even have a president, so you can imagine the uncertainty arising around there. There's also the Greece bailout. We even have the Gulf Wars, September 11th. So as you can sort of see, here's sort of where the Great Recession hit. You can see that between the financial crisis versus the modern day, we see a big sort of increase in aggregate uncertainty. So as of now, at least, and the authors whose work I contributed to keep an index updated on their website, which shows that uncertainty for the past 10 years or so has been a lot higher than it's ever been in recordable memory, and they actually extend their index back to the 1900s. So this is a really serious time, even more so than the Great Depression. So I ran a variety of robustness checks just to look at what I was seeing here. So first of all, I compared this to the VIX. So the VIX gave us a really strong correlation of 0.12, and that's a joke. But 0.12 was really small, and we wondered kind of why that might be. So first of all, we considered the fact that the VIX measures financial panic in the United States, not Ireland. Second of all, the VIX, for those of you who don't know, gives the implied volatility average over a 30-day window for the US stock market. And for Ireland, this EPU index anyway, doesn't really have like a fixed time frame from which we could be observing the spikes. So one spike here could potentially be the result of multiple, and the uncertainty from multiple events kind of coming together in a wave like that. I also compared this to the other indices by Baker, Bloom, and Davis. So first of all, the United Kingdom index, which gave a correlation of about 0.62. That was the strongest correlation, and that makes sense for the most part because we would expect that the UK and Ireland are very integrated from an economic and political standpoint. I also compared it to the US and Europe, which is about 0.49, and also looked at the Spanish index, which is 0.37. So, I should say, first of all, those were robust across different correlations like Spearman and Pearson. So, as for why they weren't necessarily strong correlations, you gotta also bear in mind that Baker, Bloom, and Davis manufacture their indices a little bit differently than mine, so the underlying structure is different. Does anyone in here in this room besides Dr. Curran know what this is? A vector autoregression? Okay, I'm probably going to skip the jargony part of this, but I'll just suffice it to say that, essentially a vector autoregression, the textbook definition is something like it's a measure of the linear interdependencies among time series variables. So essentially the variables I have, the EPU index, employment, interest rate, industrial production, the average stock exchange. This vector autoregression allows me to kind of like decompose sort of the relationships between these variables, specifically the one we're interested in, the average stock exchange and the EPU index. So here's sort of the results. So to generate my results, which are called impulse response functions, I use a policy uncertainty innovation equivalent to 70 points. So essentially, you can see here there's a big jump between the period 2004-2006 up to like 2009-2011. So I kind of took this as like sort of a shock to the EP. Just took that as my shock of 70 points. And what I found is that the Irish Stock Exchange reacts negatively to like an increase in uncertainty as measured by the EPU. That decrease was approximately 0.5%, which was statistically and economically significant, especially since we showed that would persist up to like a 14-month period or so. Other variables here like employment, industrial production, interest. So this is the Irish Stock Exchange. It falls negative at 0.5 because the confidence intervals here are below 0. We know it's a negative effect. Whereas here we have confidence intervals here, here, here. They're not statistically significant, but they're kind of qualitative with what we'd expect to see. For example, a drop in industrial production, interest rate doing whatever it wants, and employment. One reason that we might see like a spurious sort of increase in employment is because around like that time, between like the early 2000s, Ireland had a dramatic influx of immigration, like a huge influx of immigration. So this could be why we're seeing like more employment in response to an uncertain time. So the big result here to focus on is the negative relationship between the Irish Stock Exchange and the EPU index. So it's been well documented in economic history, for those of you who don't know, that uncertainty tends to have negative effects on an economy, particularly investment. One paper that comes to mind was in the top journal of economics in 2011 by the wonderful Jesus Fernandez Villaverde at University of Pennsylvania. Yes, that was a shameless plug. But it's been well documented that uncertainty can badly affect an economy. So what we're seeing here, as far as the results are concerned, is exactly what we'd expect to see from theory. So, ultimately this research tells us two things. First of all, that uncertainty does in fact have a negative impact on the economy, specifically in this case, the Irish Stock Exchange. And second of all, it goes to show like the power, the useful explanatory power of textual analysis in measuring newspapers in order to measure uncertainty. So there are a few ways that we might be able to improve the index, but there are a lot of ways. But first of all, more data would really help. So please, Ireland, get more data out there. That might be a waiting game for the time being, but more data not only is like more newspapers, that will not only make our index hopefully more accurate, but it might allow us to go from looking at a monthly frequency to a daily frequency and possibly clean up all the noise you had. One of the other articles because I told you this index was incorporated into a global solution, like a global index created by the Chicago professor, and that one's a lot more like the spikes are more pronounced and there's less noise overall. Another thing that would be cool would be to create or find a VIX for Ireland. So an implied volatility average, it'd be nice to compare those two to see if we get a much stronger correlation with volatility in Ireland versus the 0.12 we had with the United States. And then second of all, it'd be kind of cool to see what the policymakers and forecasters are thinking. So we can, of course, look at the session transcripts and the quarterly bulletin of the House of Veritas, as well as the Irish Central Bank. So that could be an extra added layer to see if what the smart people are seeing coincides with the consumers reading the newspapers. So overall, there's a lot of room for growth in uncertainty research. It's really becoming cool, and especially when you can see that there's been such an influx of uncertainty and we remain in a highly uncertain times. It'd be really cool to study how uncertainty affects the economy and to keep going forward with it. So thank you so much, everyone, for your time. Thanks for having me, and take questions whenever you guys want. So thank you.
We're going to open up questions to everybody, so let me just Brian, thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
And on behalf of the library and the Center for Undergraduate Research, congratulations.